Man, I've been reading a lot about China.
What's going on in China?
Kind of making my head spin.
It's hard to keep track of everything.
It's really hard to keep track of everything, but I'm pretty interested in this subject now. I feel like I want to know more about China because America is obviously in serious competition with China.
Yeah. I think we have been for a bit now.
Yeah, it seems like it's escalating, this stuff with the Olympics and yeah. Anyway, I was just listening to this reporter talking about anyway, we'll talk about this shit when we start recording. Doing the podcast, which I guess we could just start now.
He walked out in the gray light and stood, and he saw for a brief moment the absolute truth of the world. The cold, relentless circling of the intestate earth. Darkness implacable. The blind dogs of the sun in their running. The crushing black vacuum of the universe. And somewhere 200 animals trembling like ground foxes in their cover. Borrowed time and borrowed world and borrowed eyes with which to sorrow it.
And lo, for the earth was empty of form, and void, and darkness was all over the face of the deep, and we said, look at that fucker dance.
Welcome to Heat Death of the Universe, a podcast that endeavors to knock certain entities off their certain high horses. Get off that goddamn ridiculous tall horse, you mother-father Chinese dentist. Today is another day. It's December 10th, 2021, year of our Lord Discus. It is 10:51 a.m. and I'm still in the process of waking up.
I'm a little tired. I'm sad about the passing of Yumura.
Who?
Masayuki Yumura. He was the head engineer for the Famicom and Super Famicom. We probably wouldn't have Nintendos as we know them without the guy. Passed away yesterday. That's all I have in the news. I mean, he was old, 78. That's dying age. But, just saying.
Wait, who's the guy who's the real famous name of Nintendo though? That's not the same guy, is it?
It's not the same guy.
Okay, I didn't think so. Yeah, I've never heard of the head engineer of of the Nintendo Corporation, but that is sad.
You're thinking of Miyamoto.
That is who I'm thinking of, yeah. He was the designer.
He's a game designer. Yeah, he's famous for some small games like Zelda and Mario.
Like Mario Brothers.
No one's ever heard of. Umura was more of the architect for the console itself.
I see. Actually, designing the console and all that stuff, the original NES.
Yeah.
Damn, that is sad. So many memories connected to that little gray box.
The only good childhood memories I have are trying to put my face into the cartridge slot. Just crawl into the little gray box to be safe.
Did you think you could enter the colorful world of Super Mario Brothers if you got in?
I thought I would be dragged in the same way Captain N was dragged in.
I've only heard of that cartoon there, Captain N.
Fucking loved that cartoon. I also loved that sometimes it would have short interlude cartoons of The Legend of Zelda, and Zelda was like, Link was weird. God damn it, Jason. Anyway. Yeah, I loved it.
I think it took me many years before I realized that Link was not Zelda as a kid. Because I never played that game, honestly. In any case, let's get on to the news. Well, let's pour one out for the main architect of the NES. I was gonna say I've every 8 years, I think about just getting my hands on one of those old NESs and just hooking it up for extreme nostalgia.
There's a great shop in Yongsan. Well, there's a whole series of classic video game stores in Yongsan.
Has it gotten to the point where those are expensive now, or are they still cheap?
Depends on the ones you buy. Okay. Some of them are expensive. But there's new ones that just have
they're making they're newly producing the same
the newly produced ones that basically have an emulator on them that runs ROM, so you just buy it, plug it in, and it has all the games on it. You can buy those fairly cheap, especially the knockoff versions.
Oh right, but I'm talking about I want to be able to blow into the cartridge and shit and really
depends
really
on
play it.
The shape of it, but yeah, some of them are expensive.
Well, speaking of Japan, neighboring country, China. We've got a few news items involving China today, and got a couple of goof 'em ups we can talk about too today. Toss them in here amongst the heavy shit that matches today's weather. This fucking everything is painted gray outside today. Weather. Anyway. Headline: The U.S. boycott of the Beijing Olympics. A murderous state speaks of, quote, human rights. Now, I'm not going to say where this is from, but I want to see if anyone can guess. I want to see how quickly people can see that it's not from, say, the Washington Post or the New York Times. I'm just going to read a little bit of it here first. On Monday, the Biden administration announced that the United States would be staging a diplomatic boycott of the Winter Olympics scheduled to open in Beijing in February to protest China's human rights violations, in quotations. This means that while American athletes will compete, there will be no official U.S. delegation, a truly provocative action on the part of Washington. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said that the boycott expressed Washington's opposition to China's, quote, ongoing genocide and crimes against humanity in Xinjiang and other human rights abuses. Washington's claim of Beijing's genocide of the ethnic Uyghur population of Xinjiang has been repeated so many times by the White House and American media that it is now widely treated as if it were established as basic mathematical facts. The word genocide correctly conveys a very concrete, historically derived meaning. It is associated with the systematic extermination of defenseless populations and conveys images of industrialized mass killing, most notoriously the Holocaust. The Biden White House and American media bandy about this word without definition, insinuating that Beijing is engaged in crimes of Hitlerian proportions. So, yeah, I mean, this seemed like the article says, this is a provocative action. China's not exactly pleased about this. I think their reaction is actually in another article about this. China reacted angrily to the announced boycott. Its Washington embassy dismissed the announcement as, quote, a pretentious act and a, quote, political manipulation. I mean, this article goes on to basically say that the United States has like no standing to go pointing fingers about human rights, and goes to list like, you know, a handful of egregious human rights violations that the United States is engaged in, like now, and in the recent and distant past alike. And for example, they say Biden points his finger at China from atop a mountain of corpses. They go on to one example of human rights violation they reference is the amount of people that have died from COVID in the U.S. And it's this publication's stance that those deaths were largely preventable. And, you know, this is the thing we always talk about with COVID, is that all of this shit could have easily been avoided for the most part. Certainly we wouldn't be at like closing in on 1 million official deaths, and it's probably more. Another thing we've talked about.
I'm dense. Why are we even having the Olympics? I mean, I know. I get what.
Go ahead, yeah.
Well, I mean, I know the Olympics are really expensive, and they've been preparing for it for a while, so of course they're going to have it. But how can China do that and have zero COVID policy? That's an important thing. I agree. I think that, you know, that's hypocritical on their part. I mean, I'm sure they're going to probably have some pretty strict rules about it. And they're probably not going to let in like just tons of like non-participants. Like I imagine it's just going to be like set to like athletes that have been tested 1 million times. But I don't know. It does seem that part seems sort of to go against the zero COVID policy. And I'm not totally certain about this. I know that the World Socialist website, which is where I'm reading from, probably obviously, is they were criticizing the hell out of Japan for holding the Summer Olympics. Yeah, I remember.
And they do not criticize China in this article for holding the Winter Olympics, which I will also say is a bit of an oversight or a moment of hypocrisy on their part as well. But the real central hypocrisy of this whole thing is the American ruling class pointing their finger at China. And I mean, like what a lot of this really comes down to is this, what I'm going to just go ahead and say is largely unsubstantiated propaganda about mistreatment of the Uyghur population in Xinjiang. I did a lot of digging on this, and it's a fairly complex issue. But essentially, it comes down to people using the word genocide very inappropriately, for one. But like even mass detention, there's really no evidence of millions of people being detained against their will simply for being Uyghur, for being Muslim in China.
Yeah.
And maybe it's well hidden. I don't know, but the so-called like proof of this happening is extremely flimsy, and it's all funded by like think tanks and U.S. government funded groups that have a clear interest in demonizing China. Like there's not like any sort of like third party studies going on that show this to be the case. And I mean, a lot of it comes down to this. There's this kind of lunatic, hard right dominionist Christian guy named Adrian Zenz, who has just basically made up a bunch of data and extrapolated a bunch of data really poorly. And that's like largely what, there's basically like 2 studies that any journalist or government representative can possibly cite as proof of their wild accusations that there's a genocide going on. And they're just completely like full of holes and flimsy, and no one would ever accept documents of that nature for any other claims. Like if that kind of shit was being used to say that the U.S. was, for example, facilitating a genocide within its borders, like it would be like laughed off the world stage. But because so many we'll say Western powers, mainly the U.S., have a huge stake in challenging the Chinese government, this stuff just gets like memeified and repeated and like sent into an echo chamber, and people now, like so many people now, just accept as orthodox this idea that, oh yeah, the Chinese government is like Nazi style, like shoveling people into fucking ovens, essentially. And it's like, if you really believe that, wouldn't you like really be screaming this like at every opportunity? And like, they're not. Like, they just kind of like casually say it, like, yeah, we're not into that genocide they're doing over there. Not cool. But it got me thinking more about just, they give a lot of good examples in this article, but like, it got me thinking about like, the U.S. is the freedom country and China is the authoritarian, draconian, state, just like the heavy-handed state country, right? That's the narrative people like to play in their heads. And like,
yeah, they're being set up as the new Soviet Union.
Yeah.
As in, we need a foil.
Well, so I started thinking about like how the U.S. has, more prisoners per capita than any other country, like by far, like by a country mile, as some might say. So I found one of the more recent lists of prison population numbers, and so the U.S. is on top at 639 prisoners per 100,000. That's number 1 on the list. Do you want to just take a stab at where China is on the list?
Like 50.
See,
I just said a random number.
Well, I honestly, like, before I looked it up, I was like, oh, China's probably still up there. China's probably got a pretty hefty prison population.
I figured 50 was like in the middle of the list.
Yeah, you're like playing Price is Right logic. That's smart. But no, they're 129th in the world.
Oh, wow, that's actually way lower than I expect.
They've got 121 prisoners per 100,000.
But as an American who's followed American media, you can't trust any of the data that comes out of China, man.
Right, but we can trust all the data that comes out of the United States for no reason to. Yeah, and then, like, of course, the difference in, like, approaches towards COVID, like, this was another thing that I somehow just wasn't thinking about before, but, like, I started looking up the death toll in China from COVID, and I knew that it was low, but I did not know it was this low, and I did not know, like, there hadn't been, like, deaths since early this year, and they were still extremely low compared to the United States. Not even per capita wise, but just in pure numbers.
Yeah.
So like they haven't since April, like there was a sudden spike in April, and on one day they did have as many as nearly 1,300 deaths. But that's what the United States has, like, every day, all the time, if not way more. And obviously, I mean, China has 4 times the population of the U.S. And so, like, what you tend to see is, like, journalists either go, well, sure, China's got less deaths and less infections, but that's because of their draconian. They love, like, that word gets, like, repeated like a meme a lot. Like, their draconian, lockdown policies and stuff. And
that's because their public will listen to the government.
Yeah,
that's draconian.
It's for a lot of reasons. I mean, but, like, here's the end result. We've lost like 1 million people. They've lost 4,600 something. All in all, like, there are some days, single days where we had that many people die in the U.S.
Sure.
And I mean, that's notable to me. And, like, there's these articles coming out now that are like this one that I put on the list, the CNN one. China wants to return to, quote, zero COVID, but cases have been above zero for 7 weeks. And this article just has, like, the gall to criticize China's policy of zero COVID because they've had, like, a relatively very low amount of cases recently. They're like, hey, they had more than zero, and aren't they supposed to have zero? They failed. We are better. That's, like, what's implied throughout the whole article. It's like, right off the bat, it's like they haven't been able to achieve that ambitious goal for the past 7 weeks. That means prior to the 7 weeks before, there were zero cases, basically. And then, since October 17th, China has reported at least 1 locally transmitted case every day as local outbreaks continue to flare up one after another with increasingly short intermissions. Meanwhile, look at what's going on in the United States of America. I mean, by comparison, it's just not even comparable. Like, let's say just with it in terms of the deaths, let's double China's death count. Even if we doubled it, so some people say, their numbers are lies, but I don't think that so I'll be generous. I'll say double their death count. That brings them to about 8,000 deaths. That's still more than 100 times as many deaths in America. I think I phrased that weirdly. I'm saying there's 100 times more deaths in America than that. But yet, like, no mainstream news article is going to phrase it that way. And I don't know. I'm just, like, I'm really seeing this.
Oh, no, they won't. I've even seen, like, earlier in the pandemic, not necessarily China, but, like, when Seoul would have an outbreak and it was big for Seoul, but not really big compared to America. And I would, like, talk to Dad or whoever in America. They'd be like, oh, so there's an outbreak there. They really can't control it. I was like, if you look at the numbers in America...
People are so, like, unable to take a look in the mirror on this shit, man. It's insane. And, like,
I think America has a harder time with it than most places. Though I think that's going away. Like, I remember at one point in my life that it was much more intense, 20 years ago or something. God, I'm so fucking old. Or it felt that way. I do think there's more people who are less proud to be an American,
right?
Where they know they're free or whatever type of deal.
I guess just
seeing it.
Yes, I don't know, the mainstream discourse or whatever you want to call it, like what people just kind of like reflexively believe is like just not. It's just plainly fucking not true. Another funny thing about this CNN article is they run out of shit to say about China and they just start citing what's going on in Inner Mongolia. It's like, that's not China, right? Like, there's articles about China and they're like, over the past week, more than 300 cases have been reported in Inner Mongolia. It's like, okay, just the last time I checked, the Chinese government doesn't control Mongolia. Also, I don't really know what Mongolia's COVID approach is. I imagine it's not as serious as China's has been. Yeah, and then just all these other metrics. Like, and here's the thing: is like when when people start kind of pointing this stuff out, some people want to push back like, well, China does bad stuff. China does bad stuff. It's like, yes, they do. I agree. China is not a perfect utopia. There are definitely serious problems there, but the serious problems that I see in China are actually look very similar to ones we have in America in some ways, which is like wealth inequality, like this growing, like the growing power of like a small group of oligarchs, you know, stuff like that. I don't know, man. I would rather save the lives of 1 million people and like give up some of my quote unquote freedoms, I guess, honestly. Like what, especially when it comes to disease, because you're not just, I mean, we've said this 1,000 times, but you're not just risking your own health and your own life in a pandemic. You're actively like creating a petri dish that's going to kill other people when you behave like recklessly. So I don't know. I actually think the zero COVID policy is a good thing. And I think they should still keep doing it, even if it doesn't translate into the rest of the world. Like they've like, let's see, a recent study by some mathematicians in Beijing, said that if they dropped their zero tolerance policies, just by lifting like their travel restrictions, like instantly their infections would skyrocket to 630,000 a day. So it's like they know that, and they're not going to do it. Like, which is different from how, and it's not the U.S. It's all of Europe. It's like it's basically the rest of the world at this point. Is like, no, we can't we can't mess with like our current economic system. We can't change it. So therefore, we need to sacrifice bodies. We need to throw bodies at the service industry. We need to throw bodies at, you know, whatever it's called, the essential workers. Essential workers are just fucking cannon fodder, man. Really. Anyway, I feel like I'm going back into our normal COVID rant, but yeah, I don't know. Again, also China is like 80% fully vaccinated. They're 87% at least partially vaccinated, which, you know, puts the US to shame by comparison as well. And yeah, they're just being more scientific. They're just following science. They're actually following the science. It's not just a slogan like the Biden administration was using when running against Trump. Anyway, I mean, there's a lot more to say about this, but I guess we could probably just kind of move on past it.
You know, following science means nothing. But yeah, they're following what people should be doing.
You know what I mean.
I know what you mean. I just always go back to, well, the Biden administration is following his science too. They're just not following the science you expected them to follow.
Well, sure. Sure. They're following state propaganda derived science. I mean, but they're all, well, anyway, they're actively ignoring a lot of, I mean, there were people in Biden's own like COVID task force telling him to lock down the country, and he's like, "Huh? What? What's that, Jack? Oh, fuck off! Get out of my bathroom. I'm taking a shower with my dog." So yeah, I would. I don't know if anyone is more curious to see like the facts that I'm sort of referencing like obliquely here. You know, as always, check the show notes. Got a lot of links this week. So many that I went past my character count, and I had to like actually cut a bunch of stuff out. But sort of playing off of this a little bit is, I mean, just to continue a little bit more here about coronavirus. I've got an article from the Daily Poster called "Where is Biden on the Global War on Omicron?" The administration has ways it could share vaccine information with the world, but it refuses to do so. This is something we covered before on the podcast. We talked about the march-in orders. So there are there are multiple legally justified ways that the executive branch of the government could unilaterally
share the vaccine.
Share the vaccine, and one of the ways that,
or one of the vaccines,
so basically the U.S. government gave a ton of money and resources to Moderna to create their vaccine, and part of their contract basically gave the government what was called universal rights to their intellectual property. But yet the Biden administration still is releasing press releases saying, well, we had a lot of lawyers take a look at this thing, and they told us we can't do it, and it's just complete bullshit. It's just, they're just lying to you. They're literally just lying to you. There are tons of other independent lawyers who've looked over the contract, and you don't even have to be a lawyer, actually, to figure out that you can say, okay, forget about the fucking contract. The government still has the legal authority to strip any company of any patent if it's...
I mean, they do march-in rights. Don't they have to declare emergency first?
Basically.
And I mean, I've wanted them to do the march-in rights thing for the vaccine patents since the beginning of this. But I also knew they weren't going to, especially the moment that our favorite doctor, Bill Gates, who's not a doctor but is a doctor, told them that it would be a bad idea.
Yeah, and Biden said a while back, maybe before he even took office, oh yeah, Jack, I'm all for removing the patents, and then they just let this thing languish in the World Trade Organization, even though they don't need the World Trade Organization's permission to do this shit either. But it's the same way that Congress works, right? They just blame Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin and the parliamentarian, and on this subject, they just blame the World Trade Organization, and they say that the contract doesn't really allow them to do what they say they want to do, which they obviously don't really want to do, because then there's even a third option, which is a more strong-armed government option, which would look something like China or something, or for other comparison, it would look like shit that presidents have been doing since forever. FDR did stuff like this. There's hey, this is a time of crisis. We're going to step in and break up this corporation, or, use your product to our advantage. They could also do that as a last resort, but of course they're not going to. But it's just gross because there are South Africa, where the Omicron virus apparently originated. So they say they're 19% vaccinated, and I forget where it was, but for months and months and months now, South Africa has been waiting on this promised program with Moderna to help them manufacture vaccines there, and it's just been they've just been just not doing it. Yeah, we're gonna do that, Jack. We get around to it, and it's 7 months later, yeah, we're gonna do that, Jack. We're gonna get around to it, and they just don't do it. They just sit on their hands. It's really fucked up. But yeah, I don't know. I guess we're kind of retreading old stuff we've talked about in the past, but it's still fucking relevant. It's still very relevant. Yeah, I found this kind of longer, much more technical document about how the government can do the things that I've been talking about. So I don't know. If you don't believe me, check it out. But it basically talks about how march-in rights work, and then how what's called governmental use rights work, which is the ability to basically take over any patent if there's a reasonable kind of emergency or whatever. And I've also got a long article that I'm putting in the notes too about the Xinjiang genocide allegations. It's saying that they're unjustified and goes into a lot of detail on that. But now that we've gotten those cheery subjects out of the way,
so cheery.
Why don't we palate cleanse? Do you want to pick out something more lighthearted?
Lighthearted?
Yeah.
Sure. So dozens of camels were barred from a Saudi beauty contest over botox.
Kind of says it all.
That sentence is kind of hard for me to read. Dozens of camels barred from Saudi beauty contest over botox.
It's the BBB sound. Like maybe that's like say that 10 times fast.
Yeah, I mean, so Saudi authorities have conducted their biggest ever crackdown on camel beauty contestants. I mean, it's bad. I guess they like to give camels Botox injections and artificial touch-ups. It's uncalled for. So 40 camels were disqualified from the annual pageant. I don't even know why they have this pageant. You know, for the past, 50 years, Joe has won the pageant. Joe always wins.
Joe Camel.
Joe Camel.
Yeah, he just looks so cool.
The immortal Joe, as I call him, in his leather bomber jacket, smoking.
Camels were
Marlboro.
Camels were my cigarettes of choice. I think that advertising really worked on me as a kid.
Oh, they were mine too. Then I came to South Korea, and for some reason I thought they tasted terrible here compared to American Camels.
They do taste different. It's true.
And I switched over to the classic Marlboro Light and started wearing a cowboy hat everywhere. I said, "Cowboy Jason, motherfuckers," and then I killed myself.
It feels not right to do the cowboy Marlboro thing with Marlboro Lights. I don't know why.
I was wearing a tiny cowboy hat.
You need Marlboro Reds for that, man.
I was wearing a tiny cowboy hat.
Oh, a tiny one, like a doll-sized one.
Yeah. It's okay to be a tiny cowboy with my Marlboro Lights. No, I wasn't even the Marlboro Lights. It was those short Marlboros, you know, the ones that were like Marlboro 100 light, not 100s. What were they? 80s? They made short Marlboros for a while.
Really?
I don't know if you remember those.
I don't remember that.
I don't think they made them here. It was an American thing, but they're like three-quarters the size of a normal cigarette.
There were wides. I remember wides.
Yeah, I remember those too, but these were like 3/4 sticks.
I don't remember shorter ones.
It doesn't matter.
Was that supposed to help you smoke less, I guess?
I don't fucking know. I know that for a while there they were BOGO, and I was buying them during that period, the store, because I was poor, and buy one get one free cigarette packs seemed awesome.
Oh yeah, I remember.
You know, the great thing about smoking, I haven't smoked in a long time, but the great thing about smoking is while you think you're spending a lot of money on it, you have to think about all the money you save in the future from dying early. It's sort of like an investment in the future.
Yeah, that's one way to think about it. Yeah, I sort of shudder to think how much money I've probably spent on cigarettes in my life, or how many single cigarettes I've smoked in my life. It's
countless.
It's probably quite a bit.
Could you imagine being part of the camel breeding contest, the camel breeding industry, this multi-million-dollar industry?
I mean, the thing is like I'm thinking about it now. Like, it's a funny headline. I think the funniest part is just that it's specifically like how seriously they're taking the contest and the fact that they use Botox on camels. But we have just as stupid contests in the U.S.
We have horse beauty pageants. We have dog beauty pageants,
dressage, like horse dancing and shit like that. That's just as weird and stupid. And
I'm pretty sure they give horses Botox, but I'd never thought about it.
They might. There's probably some cosmetic horse surgery going on in this country. I've got an article set aside for another day about how billionaires get to use their hobbies as a way of saving like hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes, and one of the big ones is like owning horses. It's like a huge tax write-off.
Interesting.
Yeah, we'll get into that another day. So oh man, they get a $66 million prize if you win the Camel Beauty Contest, by the way. I want to look up, I want to check out YouTube for some Camel Beauty Contest footage later. Kind of curious. All right. What's next? Do you want to talk about this weird calendar? This calendar thing? The guy who had the calendar of like his entire life.
So this dude, Andrew Lloyd, he tried a calendar that mapped out the number of weeks you have left to live. And he decided to share how it went because he's a writer, and writers feel like sharing their dumb whims with everyone else, and then everyone else goes and reads about their dumb whims, and the cycle continues. So I guess
he also seems really like sort of borderline OCD or something too. Like there's some quote he says somewhere of like how he loves charts and graphs. Like he just like
they are nice to look at.
He has tons of like charts and shit about like how to like live his life and like, you know, maintain order in his day to day. But anyway, sorry.
So he mapped out how many weeks he had. And he discovered the 4K weeks poster because it looks like the average optimistic lifespan of a person is 4,576 weeks. I wonder how many weeks I've been alive. I could figure that out. I'm not going to. And he spent big money on this poster. I mean, the My Life in Weeks poster is actually $50. That's fuck ton of money. That's more money than I have.
You can see the poster on the wall behind him too, and it looks like someone just printed it off of like a regular printer. You see the picture?
Well, somewhere it was printed off in some fashion. Yeah, it really does look like.
I'm just saying, if you spend $50,
is that the $50 one? Jesus, I thought that was.
That's what I'm saying. I didn't notice it till now, but it just looks like regular printer paper.
Yeah, that's it. It's like the one that's $50 is a lot bigger than the one behind him.
Yeah, it's got to be right.
I mean, I just pulled it up. I think that's just the smaller poster. He's bought 2 of these. That's fucking posters.
Oh, I know what it is. Because all right, anyway, we'll get to it as it goes through.
So before you buy the poster, I guess they send it to you after you enter your birthday to calculate how many weeks you've been alive. But the real goal is to calculate how many weeks you have left. That is some grim fucking shit.
Yeah, man.
And each week on the poster is represented by a small black box. The weeks from your birthday to the day of purchase come filled in. It's then your job to fill in the remainder as time ticks by. As the poster gets old and yellowed and continues to hang on your wall, causing dread in your soul every day, ticking off another week. You do goal after goal. You beat your bench press record. You beat your 10K record, but then you stop beating records, but you're still ticking off boxes. You get too old to beat your records. Now you're just satisfied that you could still half-ass do the things you did when you were young. Sure, everything's a physical contest for you. You never really tried for anything else. It's just nice to go out there and lose yourself in a run. Now it's more of a jog, and then it's more of a shamble. Eventually, it becomes tiresome to even stand up and mark off a week on your weekly calendar. The calendar's blurred in front of your eyes. You can't tell if there's 3 weeks left or 2 weeks left. You just know there's not many left. But then, you outlive the calendar. Your old friend, your yellow-aged poster of a calendar. No one else has physical paper anymore. Everything else has moved to their digital screens. But you still have your calendar. You still put marks on it. It's lied to you. You don't feel good. You don't do the things you love anymore. They've plugged you into Zucker's metaverse, the new world. You have to live there as an amorphous blog because you still believe in analog calendars. And as you live out your digital life as an amorphous blob, you just never die. You're just lonely. Sorry,
yeah,
I lost myself there.
That's what the article was about. I mean, he does say to bounce off your sort of Cormac McCarthy reverie there. He's just like, he basically, like, to sum it up, like, he was trying to see if this would, like, make him more productive. And ultimately, he's like, no, not really. Like, because, like, I would go to, like, look at my phone, like, you know, just to, like, scroll through the phone as we all do reflexively these days.
Sure.
And he's like, but then I would glance at this calendar that's showing my whole life, what time I have left before me. And it would, like, so he said maybe I used my phone like a minute or two less than normal because it would, like, make me think, oh, I've got so little time left. Better be productive. And then he said,
why do people, I fucking hate that mindset that people think they have to be productive with every fucking minute.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, no, I know. Like, I've just, like, I don't know, talking to some other friends who are like that. They're like, you still play games? It's like, yeah, I like to enjoy my life. What do you do? It's like, work for that money. It's like, well, I'm sorry. It sounds terrible.
My condolences. That's what you should say.
I haven't died yet. I still enjoy things.
My condolences to your life that seems to be over, friend.
Glad you're buying your second house.
That you can't enjoy because you have to be efficient at all times, looking at your death calendar. But this guy, he ultimately said that he, like, took down the calendar. He says every now and then he, like, unrolls it to remind himself to work harder. And that
this is, like, to me, a shittier version of a 5-year plan. I even think, like, even though I'm joking about productivity stuff, I don't necessarily think there's anything bad about making, like, a goals for the next 5 years or whatever gets you motivated.
No, it's fine.
You know, if you want to make some stuff or do some stuff, go for it. But
it's fine, but it also depends on, like, I'm not exactly sure. This guy says he's a freelancer and a writer. I mean, he might be writing just, like, fluff piece bullshit. I have no idea.
Like this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing he's not going to be, like, the next great American novelist or whatever.
There's an argument that self-help is the great American novel.
Yeah,
but that's a whole other thing. This is very self-helpy to me.
I'm just saying, like, the people that are most obsessed with this kind of, like, time efficiency stuff, like, probably have the least interesting shit to share with the world. To be like, all they have to share with the world is, like, it just becomes this, like, meta, like, looping back into itself. Like, I do all these self-help things so that I can then create self-help things to sell to other people. Like, it's just this pointless, like, cycle.
I don't know its name, but I've used that calendar system where, like, say I wanted to develop a new habit or break an old habit, where you put an X on your calendar every day you did or didn't do that thing you're trying to develop.
I've done stuff like that on a calendar on my refrigerator where I'm like trying to monitor just, like, how often I'm doing certain things, like for example, drinking throughout the week.
Sure.
Or exercising, or, you know, do whatever, like fasting and shit like that. But that's just because, like, I literally can't remember, like, it all. Like, time just, you know, we've talked about the blurriness of time these days, especially. So, but, like, this guy seems like he's charting out, like, every day, like, down to, like, minutes. He's like, I spent 2 less minutes on my phone this this quarter of the day. Like, he probably breaks his days down into, like, I don't know, 8 slots or something. I don't know. That just seems like there's an overdrive level to it as well, is all I'm saying.
No, I get you. I mean, that's, the calendar was made for people who want to do that, and some people really want to do that for whatever reason. They also think they need to constantly be productive and, like, Personally, I'm not even sure what productive means anymore. But that's just my own, like, weird issue that I don't really get it. Like,
well, it's relative, right? I mean, it depends on your goals. Like, if your goal is to enjoy yourself,
I'm pretty good at that sometimes.
Then,
not perfect, but I'm okay at it.
And that's the product you're trying to produce is like a sense of joy throughout the day. Then yeah, I mean obviously what people usually think of is like money. It's just money making. That's what productivity is. But
God, like, I'm bad at that.
It's not necessarily the case.
Well, I am a failure when it comes to money making. Probably not the worst in history, but I'm getting there.
You're all right, man. There's people. Just think of all the people that are way worse off than you. You'll feel better.
I do, and I get angry.
Yeah.
Not at them. Angry that anyone has to live that way when I know they shouldn't have to.
I guess speaking of people living ways they shouldn't have to. One major reason the U.S. hasn't stopped syphilis from killing babies.
Who's Syphilis?
Good God, man.
And why can he kill babies?
Syphilis is the horse that killed Nietzsche in the streets of Turin.
You say horse?
Yeah, I did. I can be goofy too. No, but this is a real thing that's going on that I wasn't aware of, but also doesn't surprise me at all. Like, the greatest country on earth can't manage to do what, where'd all my highlights go on this one? God damn it. Can't manage to do what, like, global south, third world countries can do, which is, like, eradicate syphilis, basically, altogether. Or at the very least, like, syphilis in newborns. But let's see here, just to read straight from the article a bit. In public health, a sentinel event is a case of preventable harm so significant that it serves as a warning to that the system is failing. The alarms are now blaring. A growing number of babies are being born with syphilis after their mothers contract the sexually transmitted disease and the bacteria crosses the placenta. These cases are 100% preventable. When mothers who have syphilis are treated with penicillin while pregnant, babies are often born without a trace of the disease. But when mothers go untreated, there's a 40% chance their babies will be miscarried, be stillborn, or die shortly after birth. Those who survive can be born with deformed bones or damaged brains, or can suffer from severe anemia, hearing loss, or blindness. Now, one might want to push back and say, hey, why blame America for everything, Josh? Isn't this just a disease? We can't solve every problem, can we? Well, the author goes on to say, I've spent the past few months trying to understand why countries including Belarus, Cuba, Malaysia, and Sri Lanka have managed to wipe out congenital syphilis while the United States faces its highest incidence in nearly 3 decades. Last year, 2,022 cases were reported, including 139 deaths. That's a shocking reversal from 1999, when the CDC declared that the United States was on the verge of eliminating the centuries-old scourge for adults as well as babies. What went wrong here? And just to sum it up, what went wrong is Congress wouldn't allocate enough money towards treating this disease. Simply, that's like really all it is. And the author goes into, the specific ins and outs of that and how it works. But basically, I mean, here, I'll read a little bit more. So, yeah, the problem is the way the CDC is funded, which has not only hampered the response to a rise in sexually transmitted diseases, but has also left us ill-prepared for the COVID-19 pandemic. It all comes back to COVID. State and local health departments get much of their money from the federal agency, which has the best bird's eye view of all the bugs, viruses, and illnesses circulating in America. But CDC scientists don't have the power to decide how much money to spend fighting each disease. Instead, Congress dictates to the CDC in an uncommonly specific manner not seen with many other agencies, exactly how much money by line item it can spend to combat any single public health threat, from broad categories like emerging infectious diseases and Alzheimer's disease to more niche conditions like neonatal abstinence syndrome and Tourette syndrome. Okay, so point is that instead of doctors and scientists who actually understand these things, dipshit Congress members are the ones deciding what disease needs the most, is the most important to focus on with what certain amount of money.
That sounds right to me.
Yeah. And I actually found, so that article is obviously post-pandemic because they mentioned the pandemic in there, but I found a related article that talked about when this cut happened before the pandemic. This was February 2018, and it's so like obviously showing like what is leading up to everyone dropping the ball on COVID initially. But basically, yeah, it's saying that like the CDC had to like cut like 80% of their like global disease outbreak efforts because of the way that Congress like divvies up their money. And then what do you know? Less than a year after this article, COVID outbreak has begun in America. But yeah, so that's also the reason we can't even stop like very easily. I mean, penicillin, man. That's all you need is penicillin. And you know, someone that I would call more cynical, this imaginary person in my head, but the type of person who I know exists out there who wants to play devil's advocate, be like, well, maybe it's not as simple as penicillin. No, it is. Well, then maybe they'll say, well, only 140 kids died from it last year. Big deal. Don't we have bigger fish to fry? And then I would say, well, then once you start playing that game, it's just like, okay, just fucking let everybody like fend for themselves and like just, you know, survival of the fittest, you know, social Darwinism shit, which is basically what we kind of live in already in a way. But I have digressed. I mean, just speaking of like how money and the lack of money and the lack of
insurance
of changing things affects things. Yeah, there's like this kind of now famous study by the Lancet that came to the conclusion that if the United States adopted the Medicare for All Act, we would actually save money. We would save $450 billion a year, and we would save 68,000 lives per year. But it can't be done. It's an impossibility. Anyway, everybody knows that, I assume. But like just to kind of circle back to the thing about like America is so concerned about human rights. It's like I see those 68,000 deaths as like essentially murders, like on behalf of like, I don't know, not a single person, obviously, but like, I don't know, a certain collective of people. I guess you could call them the government or the I don't know, big pharma industrial complex, whatever. But like they know that there are people dying unnecessarily due to the choices that are made in policy. And yeah, I don't know what you call that. I mean, maybe manslaughter technically, but like if you know that your actions are going to lead to the deaths of certain people, like I don't know, to me that rings as murder. I don't think it's that extreme to call it what I think it is, but
I agree.
Now, speaking of people.
The cynical part of me is just thinks, can it ever change? Will it ever change?
Oh yeah, I'm not. I mean,
And then I think about the 1,000 weeks I have left to live.
yeah, 1,000.
There's no time for that. Yeah, who am I kidding? The 200 weeks I have left to live.
I was gonna say, come on, man. You probably got what did they say? The lifespan
4,725 or some bullshit like that.
The full lifespan. So
yeah,
and that guy was like 29, I think, when he wrote that. So yeah, we're at
200.
We're like most optimistically probably at like 2,000-3,000.
Yeah,
something like that. Anyway,
I need a break for 1 minute.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm better now.
So I forget where we were, but I think we were moving on to something else. So
I think we're going to talk about.
I'm gonna throw in one of these little funny ones real quick. Italian dentist presents fake arm for vaccine to get pass.
So the dentist didn't want the vaccine?
Yeah.
So he used a mannequin arm?
Prosthetic. I don't think it was like as bad as mannequin level, but says here a dentist in Italy faces possible criminal charges after trying to receive a coronavirus vaccine in a fake arm made of silicone. The nurse said she could tell right away something was off when a man presented the phony limb for a shot on Thursday. Quote, when I uncovered the arm, I felt skin that was cold and gummy, and the color was too light. She told Italian newspaper something. I'm not going to try to pronounce all these Italian words. She said she initially thought the 57-year-old man was an amputee and had mistakenly offered the wrong arm. See, she's really thinks the best of humanity. She lifted his shirt and saw a silicone arm. I understood immediately that the man was trying to avoid the vaccination by using a silicone prosthetic into which he hoped that I would inject the drug, unaware, she said. The nurse said the man acknowledged he did not want a vaccine but had to obtain a super health pass, which from Monday will be required to enter restaurants, cinemas, theaters, and other venues in Italy. Yeah, I think the Omicron is actually ramping up some of this stuff in some European countries, not all. Some of them are kind of just going about their business as usual, like America seems to be doing at the moment. More or less, I mean. The nurse said the man was courteous and left the vaccination center after the failed attempt. Quote, we stopped and reflected, and we understood that this wasn't just a surreal situation. Goddamn ads. But a real attempt at fraud. She and others at the vaccination site turned paperwork over to superiors so they could report the case, which has been given to prosecutors. But I just thought that was pretty funny. Like, just the guy thinking that would actually work.
He's a dentist, you would think.
I was just thinking...
No better.
I was just thinking that too. Like, shouldn't a dentist be smarter than that? But as Seinfeld taught me, dentists are just failed med students. That's anti-dentitism. You're an anti-dentite, Jerry. I guess just one last thing, and then maybe one more of these goofy articles. But there is an absurd opinion piece written in CNN recently that I sort of recent, a couple weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. I think this got a little traction, at least probably on Twitter. I think a lot of people were just laughing like hyenas at this article, which is entitled "Harris and Buttigieg Could Be Allies Instead of Rivals," written by...
Are they not allies?
No, they really, that was one of the leaks coming out of the out of the White House. And I think they were like, people were speculating that it was Kamala's people intentionally leaking this stuff that like basically no.
Oh yeah, I've heard that she doesn't get along with anyone though. So like no one's her ally.
Yeah, she doesn't get along with Joe. Like that was kind of in the news. It was like she's finally realizing what she was chosen just because of her like demographics, basically. And to just use her to have someone to throw under the bus, which is exactly how Biden's been using her, like making her do like the more sort of controversial things, like going to Guatemala and telling everyone to stay put and stop trying to come into the country, shit like that. But like, I mean, this idiot Lincoln Mitchell, like I looked into him a little bit. I think I'd heard his name in passing. He's just like the ultimate like hashtag resistance lib dipshit. Like he's like the platonic ideal of the hashtag resistance. I'm with her, fucking blue no matter who nonsense. And he just writes this like, he just sounds like a child who's like talking about superheroes. Is like, oh, but wouldn't it be cool if like, if Superman and Batman were like best friends and they could be president? Like,
it would showcase two dynamic politicians and represent the breadth and diversity of the Democratic Party, indeed the whole country.
All he talks about with them is
while not veering too far left.
He doesn't
and alienating queens. Wait, that's not key swing voters who Biden won in 2020.
He's just so full of shit. And first of all, like the whole article, all he does is talk about their their identities, and like is nothing about their policies at all. Not a word about it, other than saying that they're not too far left, which will be good because that's the way Democrats win elections, right? Remember 2016 when we had that awesome moderate Hillary? Man, I would. It's if Harris and Buttigieg is like the best they can think of right now. Just start welcoming Donald Trump back into the Oval Office right now, because there's no fucking way. But yeah, I mean, we've talked about both Buttigieg and Harris separately.
It's not going to be either of them that runs, though. I mean, Biden's going to run again.
Probably, unless he dies, which is possible. But he's also rich, so it's possible that they just wheel him across the finish line. But
everything's on repeat these days. We're just going to repeat exactly what we did last time.
I really think if Trump runs again, that he'll win. I mean, I'm not. I don't want that to happen, but I mean, I don't even know why I have to say that. It's just like people assume when you say shit like that, like, oh, well, you want him to win? No, I'm just telling you the fucking facts. Like, Biden barely won this time, and unless there's some like miraculous turnaround in the way things are going now. I think if Biden runs again, he'll lose. If Harris or Buttigieg run, they'll definitely lose. I mean, Biden probably has the best chance actually out of those three, but like, I mean, Harris like didn't win a single. She dropped out before the fucking primaries even started. Like her own state hated her guts.
It's too bad there was no like politician that was like almost universally popular.
Oh yeah, there was no like populist guy who was like who was like the
cool of America had one of those
who could actually attack Trump's policies from the left instead of from the fake center, which is exactly the same as Trump. Yeah, if only we had one of those guys, maybe from Brooklyn specifically, that would have been cool.
Too much to ask for.
Yeah, too much. But just this article is just it's almost worth reading just for how stupid it is. It made me laugh actually a couple times out loud. Because this guy, there's a picture of this author too, and he looks like he takes himself so seriously as like as a wonk, as a pundit. But I don't know. There's not much more to say about that, I guess. But let's see. What are the?
God, I hate American politics. Sorry, I was just looking at that, more of that article.
Yeah, isn't it terrible?
It's there's just going to be so many of them. Isn't it too early though? Like,
it is pretty early, but like,
so like, no, what I mean is, you don't put up your Christmas decorations until after Thanksgiving, right?
That's what they
Don't
say.
you at least wait 2 years before you start theorizing the next election?
No, man, people were theorizing it before Biden even was sworn in.
Yeah,
people were saying like, here's what's going to happen. Biden wins, and then we're going to get like an actual fascist, like a competent version of Trump.
I said that.
Well, everybody was saying that, but
yeah. That's true.
I got to tell you, you didn't invent that line of thinking.
Oh, I didn't invent any line of thinking.
So just to quickly close out here, let's see, what is the Mirror, the UK rag, have to say? Dolly the sheep scientists were bombarded with requests to clone dead people.
Like Abe Lincoln? A midget version of Abe Lincoln?
Yeah.
Complete with top hat. Genetic top hat.
I mean, we already do this with pets. That's already a service. You can you can clone your pets, which is a little weird, but at the same time, not that weird, I guess. I don't know. I think it's kind of sad. I know that like some fucking famous celebrity, I think like I want to say like Barbara Streisand or something. She has like her same like little teacup whatever dog, like
poodle,
cloned like every couple of years or whatever.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know, there's not much more to say about that like, other than just the headline, but like people are going after these scientists who in 96 cloned this sheep. It was this big breakthrough. I remember
there was a big arc on the soap opera Guiding Light where they cloned Reba in response to this. It was a big thing. There was good Reba and evil Reba. Great time in Guiding Light history. I feel like Guiding Light might be the longest running TV show ever. I was real into it that one time I had mono and there was nothing else on TV.
It's funny
you can figure out
you watching soap operas.
You can figure out what year I had mono by what year the Reba cloning arc was, or you could just figure it out by knowing exactly when this Dolly sheep shit was on the news. I remember it was a big thing. Christians were in outrage. They were always in outrage. Speaking of Christians, I heard they burned down not the Christians. I heard a Christmas tree was burned down in New York recently, and it was the first shots fired for this year's war on Christmas.
I see here the longest running soap opera, at least soap opera, is a British one called Coronation Street that started in 1960 and is still running to this day.
I don't know why I thought it was Guiding Light.
I mean, I'm sure that one's been on forever. It says here General Hospital is the longest running American soap
Guiding
opera.
Light, 1952 to 2009. Okay, I guess it's not on TV anymore. I didn't realize it ended.
58 though, damn, I didn't realize
52.
That. 52.
Started in 52. Okay, I didn't know that it had, but it ended in 2009.
Yeah, but that means this Coronation Street one is just kind of neck and neck with it, or it was.
Now, if you count the radio show of Guiding Light that started 19 years before the TV broadcast, 1937 is when it started, and I guess it picked up from the radio broadcast to the TV broadcast.
I see. And also, the caveat for General Hospital is it's listed as the longest running American soap opera in production currently. And the second is Guiding Light after that.
Okay, so I wasn't that far off. Man.
I don't really know my soap operas, but the one I remember seeing all the time, like just in passing or whatever, as a kid.
Days of Our Life?
No, as the world...
The Bold and the Beautiful, As the World Turns.
As the world turns, when you'd see that globe turning. There's actually this really... there's this really kind of weird, funny effective part of the novel The Pale King that talks about this this character basically like getting high and watching as the world turns and having these like stoned epiphanies about life. Anyway, I just remembered that as I brought up as the world turns.
I feel like I did have like this like brief like 3-month like obsession with that soap opera. I don't even know why. It wasn't good. You just like I just started watching it and like, you know,
I can totally see like in the era of like no streaming, no fucking internet entertainment really, like
it was on every day.
Yeah, I get it. When I had mono, also like, you know, corollary, like when I had mono, what I watched a lot was trash TV, but it was at a time when there were like 17 like dating reality shows. And I remember watching like 5 of them. And
all of them were hosted by Carmen Electra.
One of them was hosted by Chris Hardwick, actually, and it was on a boat. It was like that. I think it was on a boat. I don't know. There was so many of them. There was that like they were like blind date ones. I can't remember the names of them now. But yeah, Third Wheel, where like you'd go on a date with like 2 people, and then just like tell the one you liked least to fuck off at some point during the date or something like that. Or maybe it was Fifth Wheel. You used to go out with like 4 people at once. Anyway, I remember like just in a haze, like an opiate / mononucleosis haze, watching like 5 dating shows like in a row, like every day, like kind of just in and out of consciousness. Probably a lot of those like court shows too, the small claims court shows. So there used to be so many of those too. But we got to wrap it up here, right?
Yeah, I should get ready for the work stuff. Okay.
You got a recommendation?
Well, when you put it that way.
when I ask you straightforwardly the question,
do you have a recommendation? Yeah, when you put it that way.
It's a real trick question. I'm sorry.
Jesus, man.
I mean, I've got one. I can just go first.
Yeah, you can go for it.
I'm gonna recommend a Netflix miniseries called Maid, MAID.
Oh, that's good.
Did you watch it?
Yeah, I liked it. I haven't finished it yet, though. I started it.
It's
sorry. Go ahead.
It reminded me. I immediately started thinking about Nickel and Dimed when I was watching it, especially in the early episodes. So I guess it's based on like a real memoir, which I guess you could kind of pick up on through the show. Like she's like an aspiring writer. Anyway, it's starring, I don't even know how to say her last name, Margaret, I'm going to say Qualley, who is Andy McDowell's real life daughter. You may know her from The Leftovers as like the angsty teenage daughter. And she was also in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as one of the Manson family girls, the one who basically trying to give Brad Pitt a blowjob in the car, something like that.
Yeah.
And just that scene is so funny, actually, the way Brad Pitt's reacting to it all. He's just like, license. So let me see your license. It's just like, it's very like stone faced, just like, well, we'll see. Just show me your fucking driver's license. Like, anyway. She is the star of this miniseries, and her real life mom plays her mom in the show, which is actually kind of cool, an interesting dynamic as well. I don't know. It's just basically about like how hard it is to be poor in the United States. I mean, that's a big part of it. And she does like house cleaning jobs to stay afloat, if at all. And she has like an abusive boyfriend that she's like always kind of like on the run from and things like that. And it's really good.
I'll stay on my cartoon kick. And hopefully, I know I've mentioned it on the show, but I don't think I officially recommended it, but I really enjoyed Arcane. It's like incredible. I don't even care about League of Legends. I've never played a game of League of Legends. I know that our friends over at BDS likes League of Legends. One of them streams it. But the show's great. It probably has some of the most tastefully done like animation, and it hits some heavy topics. It's fun. Recommend it. Like how they handle mental illness in the show.
Well, what's the relationship to League of Legends? I don't know.
Set in the same world.
Oh, okay.
It was made by Riot Games, based on the characters. But the show's, I mean, you don't have to know anything about the games, which I basically knew the bare minimum about. It's just a good show. It's really well done. It was getting great reviews. I wasn't going to watch it, then I did watch it, and I couldn't stop watching it because it's great.
I've definitely scrolled by that.
Lots of characters
Netflix.
die. Don't get attached to them. Maybe that's too much of a spoiler. That's good. I recommend it. The handling of mental illness is really good. The characters are cool. The animation's some of the best I've seen. It's neat.
Cool. Sounds interesting. I wouldn't expect something based on a video game property to necessarily. But see, this is total like gamer ignorance or whatever.
Oh no, video game properties. I think it's the first show based on a video game that's actually good.
I was gonna say just like not even being good, but like handling mental illness well and stuff like that. But
yeah, no, it's got one of the most tasteful sex scenes I've seen in media too.
Nice. Okay, ARCANE.
No, it's good. I mean, it's getting really great reviews. I almost feel bad recommending it because it was so damn popular already, but it was good. I enjoyed it. I see why people like it.
Cool. Well, all right. I guess we are on the internet at heatdeathpod.com, at Twitter at heatdeathpod. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/heatdeathpod, where we're just trying to break even over there.
Yeah. See you all later.
And
It's time for me.
until next time, we'll meet again.
It's time for me to eat my saltine crackers. before I go to
Someday.
work.
Don't know where, don't know when. Well, I do know when. Probably next Monday.
Perhaps.
Yeah. All right. Bye.
Enjoy your weeks, whatever you have left.
All right, I'll see ya. Bye.
We dropped the ball, it rolled away, down a hill, onto the freeway. We didn't look, we got run over, we died and rotted, we decomposed. We became fuel for future human, flying cars, our remains will quench their thirsty engines. They'll get gas or die trying. We swallowed the olive man, we blew it. We baptized our supersized babies in embalming fluid. We dropped the ball, it rolled away. Behind the couch, it gathered dust, the soot of lives. We put our feet up on the table, which is embossed with dead skin, the soot of lives. We were scared, we bought plastic furniture covers and jogging suits to protect us from the bulldozer. Jesus Christ is my American Idol. He's the brand new funky president. Victory is certain, this much is certain. And if it's not, you can always start the video game over. Swords
The first voice recording was made in 1860. It was a 10-second fragment of the French folk song Au clair de la lune recorded by inventor Edward Leon Scott de Martinville. But who will make the final voice recording and when? What will it be? Who will hear it?